Hey, welcome to the Razzle Dazzle Show, a podcast where we talk about our favorite video games and all things pop culture with an emphasis on our favorites. I'm your host Jared, and I'm joined again by Ryan Costello, the social media manager of the official Voltron Instagram and Facebook pages. We are going to be discussing and theorizing what we want from a modern Voltron game and how to go about it. Please let us know what you think about this episode somewhere on the internet. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at Razzle Dazzle Show, on TikTok at Razzle_Dazzle_Show, on Bluesky at Raz-Show-Pod, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Raz_Daz_Pod. And with all that being said,
it's Razzle Dazzle time.
Hey there, Ryan. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, man. I've been excited to talk about this ever since you pitched it to us for the idea of this collaboration. So today it's going to be a different kind of episode that we normally do. We're not talking about something that already exists. We will mention it, of course, but this is more speculation, theory crafting, right? We're going to be theory crafting our own version of what a ultimate Voltron video game can be. Isn't that right?
That's the plan. Now, I do want to just get out of the way.
Yeah.
Although I work as Voltron social media manager, my opinions, anything I express in this are my own. And if there is some Voltron video game in development right now, I am not aware of it. I usually don't know a product is coming until either right before it comes out and they want me to promote it, or sometimes I see some other website posted. Like there's a Funko thing that was just announced with Shiro piloting Voltron.
Yeah.
I have no idea that was coming out.
Yeah, okay, understood. Hopefully any developers that are working on this or want to work on this is listening, and maybe we can help. Where do you want to start with this? Do you want to start?
I want to start with just a history of what Voltron video games have come out, because it is not a deep history.
No.
There's only 2 official Voltron games, not counting like puzzle games that have had the Voltron theme slapped on them. Some of which, that slapping is more elaborate than others, but still, you don't play that because you want a Voltron game. You play that because you're already a Voltron fan, and this is a good Voltron fix. And I had vague memories of a Nintendo, like an 80s NES side-scrolling lion game.
Really?
That does not exist.
Oh.
I did my research. The very first Voltron game came out in 2011 based on the 80s series. So it really was already, the first Voltron game was a nostalgia game. And that was from THX. It came out on the Xbox 360 and the PS3. And I don't want to go too much into the mechanics, because I feel like when we're theory crafting, we could talk about what the actual existing games did.
Right.
But decent game, very high on the nostalgia factor. It used actual footage, actual audio from the 80s series. And otherwise, it was a 2-stick run and gunner.
Yep.
There was pilot elements, there was Voltron elements, there was Lion elements. They were all pretty well segmented, and it's a fine game. It is a solid 6 out of 10.
Yeah. And what's crazy is that this game, at least to my knowledge, is not readily available anymore. It has been only in the Play stores for PS3 and the 360, and you can't play it anymore unless you were those few people who got it and still have that same system. So I remember when I first got into Voltron and I wanted to play more of the games, or play any games other than the VR, which I have platinumed. I found this one and I'm like, I want this game. I see it in the store, but there's no option for me to buy it and actually play it. So I still want to play it, and it just sucks that there's nowhere to get it other than ROMs or something.
Well, on the plus side, it was in the age of physical media. So if you have access to a 360 or a PS3 and eBay, you can theoretically buy a physical copy of the disc. And still, it was released in physical media. 2011, we were still all about discs.
Oh my God, I didn't even know that. All right, I know what I'm going to be looking for after this recording, because I want this. I still have a PS3, I still have my 360, so I'm definitely going to get on that. Okay. And next up after this, I already mentioned it, Voltron VR Chronicles. Great game. It's a very short game, but nonetheless, it's very fun. You take command of the Blue Lion. You are Lance. You go through some on-rail shooter type levels, and then at the very end, you fight the Ropies on the Balmira, which is, it's pretty fun. I like that the controllers, they're not nunchucks, whatever they're called, the things that you use on your hands, the way you pilot the line is exactly how it is on the show. They just, push their arms forward and back, and it really feels like you are piloting the Blue Lion, which is very fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting how different the two Voltron games that came out are. Because the
Yeah.
first one is really, if you just want to sit down and feel like you're interacting with an episode of Voltron, that's what the original one is. But if you want to feel like you are a paladin piloting one of the lions, that's what the VR Chronicles is.
Yeah.
It was meant to be one of a 5 or 6 part series. Each one would put you in the shoes of a different paladin.
Oh my God.
Unfortunately, the first one did not succeed very well. But with Voltron leaving Netflix soon, and people are saying like, "Oh, I'm going to miss it until while we wait for it to find a new home." I do recommend the VR Chronicles if you haven't played it yet or just watched a playthrough, because it's the entire voice cast of Legendary Defender reprises their roles in this. It looks right. I believe it was written by Legendary Defender writers, so like the dialogue feels on point. It really does feel like this is a lost episode of VLD. So if you've never seen it and you're looking for a little more VLD fix, this is one of the things I recommend for people.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't even know about the same show writers. Of course, the same voices. Yeah. And yeah, listeners, this episode is going to be releasing on December 4th, just a few days away from VLD coming off Netflix. So if you still haven't finished your current rewatch, I suggest doing that now, after this episode, of course.
Yeah, I've been doing the math, and any of the comments are like, I'm in
yeah.
the middle of my rewatch, I don't think I'll finish it. It's like, all right, how many days do we have left? How many episodes are there? So if you watch this many episodes per day, you will be able to get through it. But yeah, so if we're releasing on December 4th, then you have 2 days, because December 7th is the first day it's not available anymore. So you have to get your watch done by December 6th.
Yeah. Oh, man. Anyways.
And just, silver lining is that DreamWorks regains the rights to it. It's not like it's a shared contract that only is released when, like, you were talking about the first game is not available anymore. That's because it was a contract that expired, and now nobody technically owns the whole game. We'd have to, THX and WEP would have to come back together with any other stakeholders to make a new agreement to re-release it. It's not the case with Netflix. WEP and DreamWorks have to collaborate on working together, but we've still got a good working relationship. And so once it's off Netflix, any other streaming service could be a viable option for it, including YouTube as like a last resort, although I have a feeling there are going to be other streaming services that are interested in hosting this quite popular and still in-demand series.
Of course. And yeah, it would be cool to see it on YouTube. Joins the rest of the Voltron shows on that platform. You just watch the, like, what, 3/4 of the entire Voltron catalog on YouTube right now. So that's how I've watched them all.
I just want to wrap up talking about the history of Voltron. Yeah. There is a studio called Rojak Studios that has created a proof of concept of what a little bit more of a run and gun third-person shooter for Voltron would look like. So if you ever look up Voltron video game and you see these, like, usually it's the hunk one, where you just see him walking around in the training center with his big, his big massive gun. That is from a proof of concept. So a company that was trying to get the license for a Voltron video game did what they could to do what's called a vertical slice, which is just, we want to do a small percentage of the game, as much percentage done as we can possibly do. Yeah. It was be like, this is 1% of the game, 90% of the done, which is why it looks so good and it feels so good. It's not official. I don't know what's happened with any negotiations there. I just know that that's out there, and I'm impressed. I like what I see when I look at it, and I'm rooting for them. I want that game to exist.
Yeah, you sent me that clip, and you sent me the link, and I saw it. I just watched it like 10 minutes before we started recording, and man, out of all the ideas I was already having about how a Voltron game now can be visualized, this is like almost exactly what I was thinking about. Maybe change the camera angle a little bit, but like the combat, the feel, the third person kind of over the shoulder look, and I love that already they're playing with the co-op part of Voltron, which one person playing as Keith, one person's playing as Lance. They have two completely different play styles. It looks so good, and I just, of course I want them to continue making this. But yeah, Rojak Studios, man, you guys kick ass. You guys are kicking ass with this, and I hope like more comes out of it.
Well, it very much is a labor of love, but I also know that if they can't get the license, there's only so much they're ever going to work on this, because they are putting a lot of time and effort into this, clearly. And if it's just not something they can ever sell or even legally release, they don't want to take on an impossible task.
Of course, yeah. Oh, I just remembered it's kind of a game. It's like a Flash game. I don't know if it's still on there, but it was on the Voltron website, where you get to pilot any of the 5 lions. It's kind of like retro-y,
That
a little bit of a bullet hell
thing that I was thinking was a Nintendo game. Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, I remember playing that on my computer when Legendary Defender was still coming out, probably like season 2 or season 3 around there. And I was having like a lot of fun, just like, shooting. It's like, it's a never ending game and you just go on for as long as you can last. And it was really fun for like a cute little thing, a little bullet hell. It's nice. It's fun. Well, that's the history. Now let's get into what we think a modern Voltron game can look like. Where would you like to start?
So some of the challenges, the things that we have to overcome to take the Voltron concepts and gamify them. Because one of the problems with Voltron, and I'm not saying this as a dig on Voltron, just in the way that it exists as a series becomes a problem when you try and adapt it to a video game, is that we don't know the hard rules of when they can form Voltron, when they can form the sword. Like, why are there things that, like, what are the obstacles to them just going straight to Voltron at the beginning of every fight and just using their most powerful weapon right away? So there's a lot of ways we can gamify that, and we would have to juggle how much of it is going to be we're trying to stay as true to the lore as possible, how much of it is just for the game experience. So that's one of the things we have to overcome. Another one, this is my other two challenges kind of pair off. One of them is the teamwork theme, because Voltron is very much, it is about, 5 people come together to overcome obstacles, and then they literally come together and become one giant robot. And the thing is that if it's a teamwork theme, we want multiplayer, right?
Yeah.
But then if we're forming a single playable character from up to 5 playable characters, that completely changes the gameplay. And then how are we doing that? Are you literally just controlling the foot if you are the yellow lion? And like, there are ways we can do that are fun and challenging, but then you might have it won't look right if Voltron has one foot running 2 steps ahead of the other foot. We've never seen that. Voltron is usually at his coolest and when everyone is working together, in the most synergy. So that becomes another challenge. And then finally, I call it the multiple scales challenge, where technically Voltron exists on, we could stretch it out to 5 scales. One of them is the characters in their civvies, then the characters in their flight suits. So something has escalated and now they have to change what they're wearing and address that in a different way. Then there's them in the individual lions. Then there's them forming Voltron, and then there's Voltron with the flaming sword, which tends to be the end game in at least the original series. Oh, I guess in all the series, it's just not always called Blazing Sword.
Yeah. So
how do you make one game that covers as much of that Voltron storytelling experience as we can?
I think let's start with the first part, the teamwork theme, right? I think it's easy to get the multiplayer aspect for if we're gonna have different sections as paladins, like on foot and in lions. That is the easy part, but yeah, like you said, how's it gonna work with Voltron if we're gonna implement multiplayer within this type of game when you form it? I think the best way to do it for multiplayer, right, is to have whatever fight Voltron is having with whatever row beast kinda has to be reliant on quick time events, and everybody's not necessarily pressing the same button, but pressing different buttons to do whatever different things they have to do. And if they achieve that all perfectly, then they can do X amount of maximum damage, special move or whatever to the row beast. If one of them falters, then it's a little weaker, so on and so forth, scaling down that power depending on how well everybody works as a team. I think that's might be the best possible way to have a unified multiplayer mighty robot experience. But I was thinking, I cannot help but think of how it would feel as a single player game first, because I think if one person can enjoy it, then everybody else can as well. I think baseline, something that needs to be considered is what kind of game this could be. Right? Is it gonna be like a twin stick, like they've done it before? Is it gonna be a beat 'em up or whatever? Like what kind of genre are we pushing for? And I think the best kind, it's kind of hack and slashy. Like think of Platinum games like Transform Devastation, Bayonetta, right? Where there are light and heavy buttons and you can combo between them. Like let's start at the first scale where we're looking at the paladins. We're playing as the paladins, right? They all have different types of weapons and you can use them and utilize them in multiple different ways. Maybe depending on how we want to go further, we can add more. There's some creative liberties. They can have different kind of weapons. They can have power-ups to them, you know, secondary stuff, whatever. But light and heavy combos, right, to kind of get that close combat feeling going. And of course, different on how or what weapons they're using, what paladins you're choosing. But I think in a controller sense, like if you hold down the left trigger, that opens the option of a long range kind of attack. So left trigger, right trigger, you shoot whatever, and it can be different for each paladin. How would it work with Shiro if he only has the cyber arm? Well, maybe he can shoot like energy blasts out of it, for example, right? Alora, how would that work with her staff? Well, her Bayar can turn into different weapons. There's the staff, and then there's the whip. Boom, right? For example. And I think there's a lot of different ways that can go for. And if we're going to upscale it to the lions, right? I'm thinking very much Star Fox, not necessarily on rails all the time, but think Star Fox or Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Star Wars Rogue Squadron 3, if I remember correctly, has on-foot sections and, of course, the Starfighter sections. So maybe you can have a blend of that. But the Starfighter sections, of course, the Lion sections, I think has to be not necessarily top-down 2D type of thing. It needs to be, you know, you can go anywhere, everywhere, up, down, left, right, back, forward. You know, you have to fly around to really get that feel for the lions, for example. Does that make sense so far?
It makes sense so far, but then the question is, do the players have control over forming Voltron, or is it now we reach the point in the story where It is Voltron time?
I think in terms of structure, first, I will love it. Like I'm thinking Rogue Squadron again, where you're starting level select, mission selects in the Castle of Lions, right? And you choose which planet you want to go through. And you can choose different type of planets or different type of missions or whatever. And right before you start, you can also choose which paladin you want to play as first. Of course, all of them have their different abilities, unique weapons, whatever, for paladins and the lions themselves. Great. And this can differ depending on the level. You can start on foot, you can start on the lions, then go on foot, doesn't matter. But after you get to a certain point, oh no, big road beast, big final boss fight. I was thinking about this in the car, I think that maybe you can start on the lions and try to achieve certain points, certain objectives within this boss battle against this road beast. And I'm thinking of the same lizard creature that was on the Balmira in Legendary Defender, where they have had to start out as lions, then form Voltron, disband, so on and so forth, meet different objectives. Maybe by doing this, fill up a Voltron meter. Once you fill that up, press a button, you form Voltron. And I'm still thinking like it would be so cool to have the combat as Voltron still be similar to like Transformers Devastation, where you're just like, you know, still with those combos, still with those long range attacks. And of course there could be phases to this boss fight where you have to disband and go to separate things, and like maybe like the road beast is doing something and it's causing like a rock slide or something, and only one specific lion can go deal with that with their special abilities. Maybe Hunk needs to go there and like just make those rocks turn them to powder. Lance freezes them before they get to like the village or whatever. Like whatever. They do these certain objectives, form up the meter again, form Voltron. Eventually, maybe 3 phases, like 3 is the magic number with video games, and do that 3 times, boom, you defeat the road beast. Does that track? It's a lot.
So when we split up like that, are you controlling the 4 lions that stayed behind, and you just that's a narrative reason you are no longer all 5 lions, or are you playing the 1 lion and leaving the 4 lions to deal with the road beast?
I think for a single player experience, I think it'll be great if all the lions are in one place together in the same place. If you can switch between them, you know, like on a D-pad, you switch between lions. But like once you disband,
Ultimate Alliance style?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Like you disband, each lion, if applicable, goes deal with like all these certain objectives, right? Maybe one is left behind, like the black lions trying to distract the road beast or whatever. And like let's say you're Lance, you're taking care of a thing, and you see all these other things that haven't been taken care of by the AI, by the computer. You switch between them, try to get that done as fast as possible. Then once everything's complete, Shiro's like, okay, form Voltron, boom. Does that answer your question?
It is. That's not exactly how Shiro does it. He's not like, okay, let's form Voltron. Now seems like a good Voltron time.
Yeah. It's like,
so I do want to point out some similarities between your ideas and the THX, the 2011 version. And that was that forming Voltron was a QuickTime event. It was a scheduled QuickTime event. You didn't like fill up your Dynatherms bar, and that allows you to do it now. You are,
that's so good.
oh, yes. I was pretty proud of myself when I was like, ooh, Dynatherms bar. If we're doing it that way, then that's what it's got to be.
Yeah.
But no, so it was just you're fighting a Robeast, and then at some point it's like, now's the time to form Voltron. And it played the 80 sequence, and there were just little QuickTime events. They were very low impact, but just enough that you were paying a little more attention than you ever have to those to those scenes that it really felt interactive. How they had Voltron fight was also QuickTime events, and it was a little bit strange. So the more players you had, because it was up to a 5-player game, it would rotate between the different players getting to choose what they do, and then they had 4 options of different weapons. And I don't think they were tied to the lion you were playing. I think it was all just, here's 4 Voltron, Voltron weapons, and you choose which one, and each one had a different QuickTime event. So that, I thought, was a little bit of a failing. I thought it should be a little more tied to the lion. Like, if you're a leg, a kick should have always been an option.
Gotcha.
And like, if you're the blue lion,
drop kick.
Kind of cold missiles would have been the option. Or like, at one point, Voltron's just opened both feet and blew fire from his feet.
Yeah.
So I would have liked that tied a little bit more to the lion you were specifically playing. But otherwise, it sounds like you've just got a better version of what they were going for. And I like that.
What sucks about the version I was explaining is when you form Voltron, this entire thing that I was talking about is for a single person. But if it has to be like where it has to be when it comes to the multiplayer option, I think the best way to do that is is the quick time. But if we're gonna have the single player Voltron portion be still hack and slash, light combos, heavy combos, different variations of range attacks, right? And maybe there's a button for like a big special attack, maybe that's when you summon the blazing sword and bomb, 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 right? Whatever, super move. I don't see that specifically being translated well for a multiplayer aspect. Then that will have to lock into a QuickTime event, which I think can be easily seen as a negative, as a drawback for that, because you can have this big, intricate fighting game where there's so many flashy combos that you can do, that you can pull off, but it gets toned down because of the multiplayer hindrance, and which sucks. If you turn it the other way, then I think there's a lot of levels that is being untapped because, again, of that hindrance, which, again, sucks. Yeah. So that's the tricky part. That's the real tricky part, is multiplayer as the big boy Voltron.
Yeah, any solid idea I have had feels more like it's overcooked, but instead of managing a kitchen, you're managing a giant robot. And it would be chaotic. And yes, once you get that teamwork synergy, everything feels great. But half the time, you're just yelling at each other because somebody, overcooked the steak or whatever, whatever the Voltron equivalent of that is. And
overcooked.
That sounds like an amazing game on its own. But it doesn't fit a Voltron game, not one that also has equal emphasis on the Paladins. And it's just hard to make that leap from Paladin play. Like, Paladin play to Lion play, that could be pretty smooth.
Yes.
It's the Lion to Voltron play 100%. Is the biggest challenge to me.
Yeah, and which is like the main draw, too, because of course you want to play as frickin' Voltron.
Yeah.
But yeah, all the stuff before that, the Lion and Paladin play, that's easier in terms of like concept and maybe execution. With the Lions themselves, I think there's a lot of open room to have. Are you familiar with Starlink?
No. It's
a Nintendo Ubisoft game. They had a Star Fox crossover, so like it really helps this. It's where it's not necessarily open world, but it's an open solar system, right? And you pilot whatever ship you are. I got the Nintendo version, so I have the R-Wing. And you can start up in space, right? And I know there's like a hub Star Fox equivalent of a hub ship or whatever. So therefore Castle of Lions. But you can start off in space and you can fly to all these different planets. And within these planets is an open world where you can take care of like anything you need to do. Like there's an invasion of this enemy force that's happening or whatever, and you can go there and do that. And even the planets themselves are pretty big and vast, and you can go up and leave anytime you want, right? And I think to not limit the exploration bits of what a Voltron game can be and just stick with like Rogue Squadron levels of like you start off in the hub, Castle Alliance, and you just mission level select, whatever. That's fine in concept, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but of course we want to free roam as Lions. We want to fly. We want to go anywhere and everywhere we want, and this is ambitious, of course. But I'm thinking you start off in space and you're trying to go to a specific planet, let's say the Balmero again, just because it's on my mind. And in between where you are in that planet, there are Gulver ships anywhere and everywhere, random bits or whatever, and they can like move in real time, in different quadrants or whatever. I don't care. And you can still fight them. You can still have dog battles within space, and there's just like side missions, like little mini things just to keep you busy as you're going system to system, And I think that can be very cool and very fun, and that doesn't necessarily need a multiplayer aspect. Of course, you can do it with the other four other people and still have fun like that. But let's say this is like an online game and like multiple people want to go in different places at the same time, then like they can potentially do that. But also that's big, So there's a lot of things to play with there, but it's hard because you want to be able to have both options, I think, of having a fully enjoyable, immersive game for single player, but having these amazing added bonuses as a multiplayer game, because it can be. If you want to go to different places at the same time and two different planets, that might be too much, So therefore, that's why there's this level select, and you can all agree on choosing this particular level. Or on the off chance you and four other people decide, yeah, let's agree and like take care of this one thing in particular each time. That's unrealistic. You know what I mean?
Okay, but let's say like unlimited budget.
Sure, yeah, let's do it.
Let's say we're going for something with a Mass Effect vibe.
Ooh.
So the majority of the time you're on the Castle of the Lions, assuming we're doing a Legendary Defender adaptation.
Yeah.
You're up in space, and then you just have this smorgasbord of missions that you can choose. And what I'm thinking is that most of these missions are 2 players or 1 player and an NPC, and you have control over one choice, and then one of them it's geared towards. Like, this is a Pidge mission. Who's Pidge going to bring along with her?
Oh.
And if we do it as a multiplayer thing, then you could actually confer with your 4 friends and say, all right, we've got this Pidge mission, so the Pidge player has to go there. And then we could also do this Hunk mission at the same time. That frees up 3 other characters, which would mean somebody has to stay on the ship. All right, let's say it's 2 or 3 player missions, so that you can choose to mix and match things. And so that gives like replayability, because you could play through the whole game as Pidge and then try it again as Lance, try it again as everybody, and you're getting different views of missions. But also if you're playing multiplayer, probably, well, you know what, couch co-op, you could both go on the same mission.
Yes. And
then playing online, you could each go off, and then when you return to the Castle of the Lions, actually tell each other in real time, this is what just happened, and summarize the plot, and it becomes like more of a role-playing game.
Yeah.
And then for like plot heavy ones, those are the ones where you could bring all 5 paladins, or you're expected to bring all 5 paladins, and you will be forming Voltron at some point on that mission, or majority of the time. On the land-based ones, but then like the really big plot, like the boss fights will tend to be in space, and that's when you're doing some more like dogfighting and then eventually forming Voltron.
Yeah, I like that.
I like it too much. I regret that it doesn't exist.
For multiplayer, right, you got to think of like what makes current multiplayer games work, right? I think of beat 'em ups like the recent TMNT Shredder's Revenge game, where you can play as 4+ people at the same time. I'm pretty sure it's up to 6 players like at once per level.
I know there's like 10 playable characters now.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can get 10 people in, but you can get a whole lot of people, more than an arcade
for
cabinet
sure.
Could,
by default 4, but I'm pretty sure you can do 6 now. And how you can get these people to decide on which levels to beat is just you have to go level 1, then level 2, then level 3. And that's fine. Again, that's fine. But I also want to free roam. But also, maybe when you select this one level, maybe you don't have to do the objective right away. Okay. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go now. This
Once
idea
again,
is
we're
making
kind
it
of
up.
drifted towards the THX 2011 one. Where it really does feel like they checked a lot of the boxes for what a Voltron game should be. Is just that it wasn't good enough. Like the play pattern got repetitive, and so it should be fun.
Yeah, I think having it as a twin stick is a big killer to the fun. Yeah, it's fun. I think it's fun for an afternoon just playing a twin stick shooter game. It's just like, yeah, okay, this is a nice time killer or whatever. But like to really sink your teeth in to what Voltron is now, and of course, if we're talking about using the Legendary Defender universe version of this franchise for this game, there's so much more that can be fleshed out because of how much is fleshed out within the show. So I think because of how basic the 2011 one was, that kind of just made it not as, I don't want to say enjoyable, but like as memorable, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So I do want to give credit to one mechanic that they were pretty creative about, and that was how they brought the pilots in, because they weren't called paladins until Legendary Defender.
Right.
So you were running around in your lion, and if you deplete your health bar, the pilot ejects, and it ends up in a 10-second survival mode. So the camera doesn't zoom in or anything. You're just this tiny speck running around the board, trying not to be killed by the giant tanks and whatnot. And after 10 seconds, the lion's health bar refills, and you can jump back in. And so going back to what I was saying about it checks all the boxes, in the same way that I said, well, we need to exist on multiple scales. They found a way to work the pilot into it, even though this is clearly a lion running gun.
Right. That's pretty cool. I can see that working with a broader 3D open worldish, open region game for it, whereas you can choose whether or not to exit or enter a lion. But in multiplayer, I don't see that working. I can see that working in single player because Xenoblade Chronicles X, if you're familiar.
I'm not.
It's okay. It's a JRPG, right? And you can take control of a person, but at some point in the game, you get a mech that can transform into a rolling vehicle, like a land vehicle, and it can fly. And at any point within the game, in and out of combat, you can choose whether to get in or get out of this mech, which you can also battle in it. And as a single player game, that works. Now there is online elements where multiple people can be playing in the same server, but you're not seeing like a whole team of mechs flying at the same time. No, it's in your world, but people are also playing, kind of like Dark Souls, how they do multiplayer. Like everybody's technically online, but you don't see everybody at the same time. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah. So that's the hard part.
I'm wondering now, is JRPG the direction we want to go?
Ooh,
because you can build up a party.
No.
You could start with the 5 paladins, and then you could this is one of the few versions of the game where Koran could be an actual member of the party and contributing in some ways. And it would just mean that when you go to boss fights, it just has to narrow it down to 5. And we can even, mess around with the lore and say like, oh, well, in this version, Koran is the black pilot lion just because he was your main when you were doing your quests. And that could be the whole story, that you are this group of people. It can be the established characters. It could even be brand new characters, and this is a whole new chapter in the Voltron lore. And you're going around and you're building your connection to the lions and the elements that work with the lions, and slowly build up to getting the lions. And then when you're forming Voltron, it would be a unique combination for every player.
I can kind of see that happening with Vehicle Force. But
oh, yes. Wow, I was not expecting to bring up Vehicle Force in this. What's wild is that the direction I was going, have you seen the Mattel Little People Voltron set?
No, Mattel Little People.
So if you know the Little People, they're a very kid-focused, a preschool-focused, pre-posed figures. Like, it's not fair to call them action figures, but it is like, yeah. So it's very chibi style, and they've started doing licensed collectible sets, and the Voltron set is probably the best set they've ever produced.
Right.
Because the boxes are the lions, and the boxes can be rebuilt into Voltron.
Yeah.
It is absolutely amazing. And that's actually the aesthetic I was thinking of. So, which again, was not something I expected to bring up in this conversation. But if we're going with JRPG style, we could almost get away with this being the Little People version of a Voltron video game. And it can be a very, kids first
cute,
JRPG.
Chibi kind of, I see.
Yeah. Chibi, just very cute, very... you can get action in there, but it's very cartoony action.
I think
there's something there.
I think for a JRPG aspect, I don't think turn-based can work that well for an action-driven franchise like Voltron.
I mean, Final Fantasy.
Well, Final Fantasy did start off as turn-based, but like with Final Fantasy 15, 7 Remake and Rebirth, and 16, the combat system has changed to more hack and slashy, right? There's light and heavy combos. Of course, there's spells. Hey, menu within the real-time combat where like everything slows down. You hit the menu button and you get to choose like a next special attack. Like, oh my God, if you're playing as Voltron, right? You're just punching, shooting a little bit. Menu, select. Form shoulder cannon.
Yeah, and
right?
So like Lion could be focusing on the sword, and that gives red could be focusing on the sword, and that gives yellow a chance to form full shoulder cannon. That, I think you finally cracked how the Voltron could work. So it's so like, how are we summarizing this? It is real time, but with quick time elements, and they slow down so that you can access your menu. Like the whole, and that works into a little bit of chaos of everyone working together, because the yellow line might say, I got to open my menu. So everyone now slows down mentally how they're going to be controlling their aspect of it, because the whole fight's going to slow down.
Right.
Which gives, like, this is assuming there's a multiplayer element to it.
Right.
It would give everyone a chance. Like, everyone has to stay in step.
Yes,
and
for sure.
You have to communicate, which means everyone is controlling a single character. Up to 5 people are controlling a single character, and yet everyone is influencing a little bit of how it works without taking control away from anyone else.
Right. And I think another big issue that we haven't talked about a multiplayer aspect of this is how are they communicating, right? Of course, have the option of like live voice chat like any other multiplayer game, but not everybody will have access to that. Not everybody will have a microphone. Something that a lot of games do, and the first thing that came to mind is Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes, where it is a multiplayer Zelda game. You get to play as three people can play as 3 links at the same time, but it's on the 3DS, so you can't really have a voice chat. So there's little emotes that you can do that like says like, hey, let's do this. Hey, let's do that. What if for this multiplayer, when you're forming Voltron, there could be like, I don't know, one of the bumpers, right? One of the bumper buttons you press and hold, and there's this wheel of options. You can tell everybody else like, hey, let's do this. Hey, let me form shoulder cannon. Hey, we need to form sword, form shield, whatever, and everybody has access to this at all times. So when somebody presses that, everybody sees it and they're like, okay, whoever is in charge of that thing, do it. And it happens. Maybe once you press go into the menu, time slows down for everything. So you can actually press the menu, you click the option you want, and maybe there's a quick time event to execute that and determine how well it does against the Robeast. Maybe?
What I especially like about that is that it could use the split screen that Voltron is so famous for. That when you go into emoji mode, your character pops up and then people are paying attention to you, but can still see the rest of what's going on. And if too many people try and talk at once, oh no, nobody can see what's going on. So it has the same feel of everyone talking at once, but it's purely visual. That I was really ready to say, well, I'm sorry if you don't have a microphone. This has to be microphone. This emoji system actually might be as a default of how to do this.
Yeah, and I think another way to telegraph for everybody to be thinking about the same thing at the same time, the Robeast has certain weaknesses, and depending on whether there's like an obvious weak spot, like a giant eye, like any Zelda game, or like a glowing part, whatever, the color it's glowing is
tied to the lion that has to.
It's tied to the lion.
It's vulnerable to.
That's vulnerable to. Yeah.
We can also add a sci-fi element where you have to scan it, and that's when these things start showing up.
Oh, that's so good. And you can maybe then that's when you see the health bar or whatever, that's a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of putting yourself out there, but this is valuable information.
Yeah.
And then, oh man, I feel like we finally cracked the Voltron aspect of it. Because honestly, we can do anything we want with the Paladins and it all works.
Yeah.
But it was always funneling down to, but how do we control Voltron?
Yeah.
And I really think we've come up with something cool here.
Yeah. Let's do you want to review real quick on where we're at?
Sure.
Right? Because you said a lot of stuff.
Yes. All right. So when it's a row beast fight, I'm saying multiplayer. Like, I know we came up with a lot of single player ideas, but I really think the best Voltron game would be a multiplayer.
I agree. That's like the thing you need to have to make it work. At least having that option too.
Okay, so then it becomes a real-time combat that there are certain controls that will slow down real time. But if you're spending too much time, the row beast will still be able to blast you and whatnot. And so we are communicating through this emoji wheel. And when you activate the emoji wheel, your character pops up on the screen. So if too many people are talking, too many faces are on the screen, and it makes it too hard to follow, and the row beast has a greater advantage against you. So you've got to work on your timing so that the person that is hitting the person that has to do something is so that there's only one person that has to do something at a time, or maybe two.
Yeah.
And it's some of the stages that will make the combat interesting is that the row beast will have vulnerabilities, but you need to scan them, you need to work them out. It can be like green can do the scanning, but then they need to communicate with everyone else because they're the only player that can see it. Those kind of things. And and there's a lot that'll be the play pattern, but you can customize the vulnerabilities of the row beast so that every single row beast fight feels unique and interesting. And since row beasts will only be the boss fights, we only need to design a dozen different ways that we can do this before we have to worry about we don't have to worry about being too repetitive, because this is going to be a thing you build towards when you're otherwise playing as paladins and lions.
There's at least minimum 5 you need to be different.
Yes.
Because there's 5 different weaknesses. Each line needs to have a specific way to take down this row beast, or has to have a super effective attack against these row beasts. Whether it's, I'm assuming like for the black lion might be like laser eyes or something. I don't know.
Right.
Of course.
The black lion maybe will always be in control of the main maneuvering around, because they've got the wings and they are in control, and then everyone else can worry about taking care of the vulnerabilities.
But then,
is that giving the black lion not enough to do?
That's what I worry about.
Okay.
That's what I worry about. Oh, what about the chest blast? The chest beam.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Just like, I think that could work. I just think laser eyes because that's, Defender of the Universe.
Right.
we haven't seen Legendary Defender use laser eyes, I don't think yet.
I don't think so.
Oh man, a cool attack. I'm just thinking about like small little things now, but a cool attack would be like forming the giant wings, right? And then like...
Wait, when you say the giant wings, are you talking about the Season 7 wings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like the big boosters, right? And as like a super Voltron formed sword, and like... Are you familiar with Cloud's Omni Slash from Final Fantasy VII?
Maybe not by name, but you describe it and I'll probably remember.
The Voltron, or the row beast is like right here, and then Voltron forms the big wings. There's the sword, and it goes choo 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 choo. Kind of like Dragon Ball Z, kind of just slashing it. Like just going super fast. That would be so cool. Anyways, that's a side thought.
Yeah. Well, I also like that a shield is part of Voltron's arsenal. So we can have more aggressive row beasts. We'll need more shield time up.
For sure, yeah, and of course the Green Lion can take control of that. Also, Green Lion, the giant blaster. Yeah, the arm blast, the arm cannon, the Megatron cannon, whatever you want to call it. Red will mainly be, of course, in charge of the sword.
It's more of a sound wave cannon because it's shoulder mounted. Megatron's was forearm mounted.
No, I'm talking about...
We're getting technical. No?
I'm talking about...
The yellow cannon, right?
No, I'm talking about the green cannon.
Oh, the green... Oh, hold on. Green cannon. What am I forgetting here?
It's... I think they have only used it like once or twice, and it was... The first time was on Riker's planet. I forget the name of it. Okarion? Okay. Yeah. It's the second time they were there, when they were fighting the... Was it the cubes? Was that the second time? When they formed Voltron, Pidge unlocked a new power.
I'm trying to remember the order that things happened in.
Yeah. When Pidge bonded more with her lion, she got the Vine Beam. And then when they formed Voltron, Pidge unlocked a new power for Voltron, and it was a giant like arm cannon. Not shoulder, but arm. And it was just like a big blast. It's like not vegetation at all, I don't think. It's just like,
Okay. I'm
pretty
not
sure.
finding a picture of it, but the way you're describing it, I definitely remember that moment. I just don't remember what the cannon looks like.
Right.
But if you're saying Megatron, then I can picture it.
Yeah.
So it's like Green Lion's back cannon, but
exactly
like probably larger scale. Okay.
Exactly that. Yeah. But of course, she'll have control of the shield when needed. The Yellow Lion, the shoulder cannon, that's too easy. That's great. And Blue Lion, that's the tough one, I think.
Blue Lion doesn't really have an accessory that adds to Voltron, right?
How about make it the nunchucks? I don't know. Make a new thing. Make
Sure.
a javelin. You know,
Yeah, it doesn't need to be the established lore. We can add a couple of things.
That's also a great thing about this, because this can be a continuation maybe, or it could be like, just with more adventure. Like if we're talking about plot, it could be more adventures within the seasons, right? In between, like it doesn't matter. It could be whatever. But we can have a great thing about Voltron, why we love it so much, is the new powers that it gains every episode, especially in Defender of the Universe, where it's just like, hey, we try this new thing. Okay. But one thing I love about Legendary Defender, there's scaling, right? As the Paladins get better and stronger, so does the Lions, and so does Voltrons, unlocking new powers organically. And with this, again, I'm thinking single player, a skill tree. If we also want to incorporate JRPG elements, a skill tree to unlock new things, new abilities, new weapons, new combos, like, bro. And that can span with all three, the Paladins, the Lions, and Voltron itself.
Yeah, because like we saw them unlock new forms for the Bayards as they went on, so that could be part of the skill tree.
Yeah. There's so much you can do as of making new things. Like I'm thinking of like, what would how would Hunk fight close combat? He only has the big minigun, right? That can be a possibility, but I was thinking, this was my thought last night, because I stayed up all night thinking about this stuff. You know how the yellow lion has that like armor, the super armor, and the claws, right?
Yeah.
And it can like drill into the earth and stuff. What if Hunk has these giant knuckle gauntlets, right? And he punches, right? But they can also have like drill arms, drill hands too, like, I don't know.
And just for fun, if it's all the fingers go into one, it's like an oven mitt.
Yeah.
Oven mitt boxing glove.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. I was thinking of like the big gauntlets that like Vi from Arcane has, just like a giant freaking, or like what Garnet has from Steven Universe. Yeah, there's a lot of ways where you can add new refreshing stuff to a Voltron game, but we have been talking about a whole bunch of different ideas, but to condense it again, I think what we've agreed upon, at least for combat mechanics, the Platinum Games style hack and slashy with mix of shooter elements within the combat for the Paladins. I will love a combo-based centric combat system like Transform Devastations and stuff, which also does have a long range system within that, which you can aim and shoot. So that's perfect, actually. And for the Lions, very Star Fox Rogue Squadron-esque. One thing I don't think we've come to determine or come to like a concrete decision about is like, how are we going to go about level selection? Are we going to have free roaming like I mentioned earlier, or are we just going to have like what Rogue Squadron does and Star Fox does, is like, here's a level select. You have the options of all these levels at first, and you get to choose which paladin you want to play as. Click start, go, you're there. And of course, depending on the levels and within the story, you can start either as the paladin first or as the lion at first. That can be mixed match just to keep it fresh.
Just thinking of how the plots in the source material goes, there's usually only one or two exciting things happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So it does feel like, let's just go with single, straightforward level selects. You can replay some old levels if you want to get different experiences, but for the most part, a pretty linear plot across levels that you're selecting in a row. Every now and then we can branch out.
Right.
For variety.
Gotcha. And about branching out, I was thinking too much like Star Fox, and I want to pick your brain about it. Depending on the level and maybe like some choices, or like if you've managed to accomplish some objectives but not all, like depending on how well you do within the level, it unlocks different levels. That's where it can branch, I think.
Sure. I always love that. I love the we did well this level, but let's do the same but better, because we know there's more that we can unlock. There's more XP that we could have gotten. There's more subplots that we can unlock. Yeah,
like let's say you haven't saved X amount of citizens or whatever from a thing, or too many coalition ships got defeated while in battle, and if it's under a certain benchmark, like it locks out one of the branches, and you can still progress. You're not stuck there and have to repeat every time, but you can still progress, but it's like a different branch regardless. And I think that can work. Have some variety, have some replayability too, and challenges to do things better. And of course, there will be things that can be special or easier depending on the line you have, right? And of course, within the lines have their, which we have already mentioned, have their unique abilities. Like even like in handling, I think the red line, of course, has to be the fastest, right? The yellow and black are the slower ones. The blue line is well-rounded all around. You know, some have better durability, some have better firepower, or whatever. Some are better physical, right? Like the black line, for example. You know, like I don't know. I think there's a lot to work with there.
One tangent, just to talk about the black line being more physical. In the Voltron Defender of the Universe 2011 game, the black line can pile drive giant robots.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one of its special moves. And the first time I saw it, it was like, what just happened? He, like, grabs a guy, lifts him up, jumps, and does a full-on pro wrestling pile drive.
Just the line itself?
Just, Black Lion. When we were soloing Black Lion, that's one of his special moves. But
that is so funny.
To get back to what we were talking about, we haven't really talked about the plot, but I think forming the coalition is probably the best plot we can have for it.
Yeah.
Because those episodes kind of span the largest timeline, and so there's enough gaps in between. There's a lot of variety to it. You know, you come in, you save the population, they join. You show up another one, diplomacy. Like, there's a lot of different ways that missions can be crafted around that plot. It also then has the most intangible effect on your lion or the whole crew going forward.
That is such a great idea. Yeah, it spans a long time, and this is also in the same time where Keith is like on and off piloting Voltron. Shiro steps in, and already that's a good way to play all 6
That
paladins.
Be the first choice you make of whether Keith stays on and becomes the leader or leaves and joins the Blades of Marmora, and you're playing as Shiro for the most of the game.
That'd be so cool. And to have like bonus missions, right, that focuses heavily on the on-foot paladin stuff, have a side story for Keith doing Blade of Marmora stuff, maybe?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, man.
What if the game's difficulty, when you're just choosing it, it's like easy difficulty is Shiro's in charge.
Yeah.
Higher difficulty, Keith's in charge. And maybe right at the bottom, the hardest mode is Hunk's in charge. Somebody with no leadership skills.
Okay, yeah. So whatever paladin you pick determines the difficulty of that section, maybe.
I think that, you know what? I think Pidge people will be the most offended, because no matter where we put her in there, I feel like people are going to be like, she should be higher. And I think Lance people might take it personally, because I would put Lance as second most difficult pilot in charge.
Yeah, I agree. I think Shiro, Allura.
Yeah, agreed.
Keith.
Yep.
Pidge, Lance Hunk.
Pidge, Lance. Okay. You know what? Maybe it's not as controversial a decision.
I think you can switch off between Keith and Pidge a little bit.
No, I feel like Keith is resistant, but actually a born leader.
Gotcha.
Whereas Pidge is kind of in her own world, and that's why she's a great team player, but not a great leader.
Gotcha. Yeah.
With nothing but love for all of the characters.
Right. Yes, of course.
Oh, wait. I guess we could have unlock after you beat the game, you then unlock the Quran as the highest difficulty. He's in charge of everything.
And he's in that paladin armor that we see in season 1. Oh my god. How about this? A completion bonus, right? For getting through the game, maybe just unlocking just beating the getting to the credits, or maybe I don't know, getting what would challenges be? Anyways, whatever challenge there are, completion bonus, if you do all of that and beat the game, you unlock Quran with his paladin armor.
Okay.
And you can pick any line. You can free play all the levels, and you can pick any line for Quran to pilot just for fun. He can pilot all of them. Who cares?
So what I thought you were going with is that if you beat the game or you unlock your challenges, you get the original paladins like Alfor and Darkon, that era of paladins.
Oh my god, that's such a good idea. Yes! That is such a great idea. That too. Let's do that too. Like skins? Oh my god. Oh!
Yeah. Skins or different starting stats, and maybe even different trees that you can unlock.
Yes.
What's great is that even the ones that we know a lot about, we don't know that much about. So you could fully customize the game around who these characters are.
That's so real. Now that's got me thinking, like, maybe as you progress through the game, as you complete certain challenges, some rewards for that. Yeah. Different outfits for the paladins, maybe like their civilian clothes, their armor, maybe a 80s version of what they look like for all that, right?
Skins for every series.
And for the lions
that had original skins.
And for the lions too, maybe? That would be sick.
Absolutely.
And of course the original paladins within Legendary Defender. That is such a good idea. Oh my god. And maybe like the 80s stuff is kind of cell shaded, because I love cell shaded.
Sure. We could even have classic 80s and 80s cell shaded.
Yeah.
Those could be two separate things you unlock.
Why not both? God, I just love cell shading. Oof. That's so good. That's a great idea, man.
All right.
Oh, I think we have something here.
I think we do. We have, again, we went too far, and now I regret that this doesn't exist. Like, I want to be playing. I want to finish this call and then go let's log on to
play
our
Voltron.
Xbox 360s and play a game.
Right? If there was a already existing game studio to make this, who would you think will be best qualified?
Here's the problem. I don't stay on top of that stuff.
Fair.
I know that impressions of a studio can change wildly. So if I throw out Ubisoft, somebody could be like, after this thing they did, it's like, no, Ubisoft 2015?
Right.
Was that when they were cool?
That's fair. I've been mentioning Platinum this whole entire time, and I think at least for the combat system, not the lion portion, but at least for the combat system for Voltron himself and for the paladins, I think that would be the way to go. But yeah, man.
I defer to you as the expert.
All right. Well, hopefully one day, maybe, or maybe somebody's listening to this right now who is a game developer and likes what we're saying and takes some notes and is able to create this thing. You know?
Well, we have a Voltron movie coming in the next couple of years, and so the likelihood that we get another Voltron video game is quite high.
Ooh.
I don't know if we're getting this Voltron video game, but surely we're getting something.
I hope so. Yeah, man. And another skin palette swap or whatever could be from the movie too. That'll be great.
Of course. Why didn't I think of that?
Oh man. All right. Well, before we continue going on this spiral, let's end it here.
So there's just one thing I want to shout out to or bring attention to. You said that this is going up on December 4th, so that means that people, if they hear this in time, then they will know that on December 6th, which is the last day the Voltron Legendary Defender is on Netflix, we are doing a watch party. So this is just trying to, just an effort to bring the community together and put a positive spin on something that's otherwise just, there's no good comes out of a show being taken off the platform and becoming harder to see. So we're just trying to do a big community event to try and cheer people up and remind people of the community that was built around this show. So at 2 p.m. Eastern, there will be a post on Voltron's Instagram. And if you go to that post, it'll be very clear. It says the Rise of Voltron Watch Party. We are going to be all pressing play on the Rise of Voltron at the same time. So we're not doing any kind of live stream or whatever. Everyone needs to get the Rise of Voltron on their own device, on Netflix or whatever you have you. At 2 p.m., we all press play. And then in the comments on that post, we all just chat. So I already know the first comment is going to be about how the Voltron original series banner will come up. It's one of the first things as part of the credit. Actually, I think it is the very first thing on the credits. And so I'll be saying weirdly, I am nostalgic for this because no matter where it ends up in the future, this particular opening to every single episode for 8 seasons will no longer be there. And that's just the kind of thing that you don't realize you would ever get an emotional attachment to. So that's the kind of conversation we're going to have. When something comes up, we'll post. I'm going to post it with a timestamp. I encourage other people to do that so that when people come back later, if they weren't able to join during the live recording, they'll still be able to see at what time the comments are referring to. But anyway, that's just what the effort I'm going to be doing and to put into this to make sure that this is, whether you are there live or not, the most engaging and community-based post we've had in a long time. So just to get the details out there one more time, Friday, December 6th, on the Voltron Instagram account at 2 p.m. Eastern, there will be a Rise of Voltron watch party where everyone can get together and just engage with one another as a fandom for this one show, Voltron Legendary Defender. That means a lot to so many of us.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Ryan, so much for coming on, taking the time to theory craft what a preferred amazing Voltron game could be. Thank you for choosing the Razzle Dazzle Show to talk about this on. And yeah, this has been a lot of fun.
I agree. I had a lot of fun too. Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time. All right, that's all the time we have for today, guys. If you want to hear more from Ryan, be sure to follow him on his Facebook at Ryan Costello and on Bluesky at costello.bsky.social. And of course, be sure to follow Voltron on all social media platforms on Instagram and Facebook at Voltron Official and on TikTok at Watch Voltron. Links to everything will be in the description down below. Be sure to let us know what you think about this episode somewhere on the internet, and be sure to follow us on Instagram at Razzle Dazzle Show, on TikTok at Razzle_Dazzle_Show, on Bluesky at RazDaz Show Pod, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Raz_Daz_Pod. Be sure to rate us 5 stars and leave a comment down below. We'll catch you on the next one.
Next time on the Razzle Dazzle Show. It's not that difficult to make a superhero game where, as long as like everything you can do is true to the superhero and like you have like a sandbox for you to be able to play in and interact with, and the story is solid, that's all it takes. We go back to what we talked about in a previous episode. Jared wanted Rocksteady to make a Daredevil video game. It can be done. It definitely can be done.
Tune in next week.